In the early hours of the 3rd of July 2025, Diogo Jota was on the road. Beside him sat his younger brother, André, just the two of them, moving through the A52 motorway. Jota was the one behind the wheel of a Lamborghini Huracán, the engine low and steady, the car gliding over the motorway as they headed toward a ferry that would take them to England. The road was quiet, traffic was thin, everything felt normal, under control. The kind of drive where the car feels alive and the night feels endless. Then, on a dark stretch, it went wrong. As Jota moved to overtake, something unexpected happened, and Jota lost control in seconds. The car veered off the road, struck the embankment, and burst into flames almost immediately. At this time, the drivers behind him slowed, and the passerbys stopped. One of the most famous footballers of our time had just been in a catastrophic accident. Now let's pause and recount all the events that happened before this day and how everything turned out later on after the tragedy. We go straight to Portugal, a quieter place, a town called Gondomar, just outside Porto. This is where Diogo Jota's story actually begins, and the year is 2012. At the time, Jota was just 15 years old. Not that big of a deal like we know him today. He was just a teenager attending Escola Secundaria de Gondomar, balancing school life with a growing obsession for football. Training sessions, classes, homework, repeat. No luxury, no cameras, just routine. And it's inside that very ordinary routine that he met the woman who would later become his wife, Rute Cardoso. Rute wasn't loud, neither was she flashy. She wasn't someone trying to be seen. By every account, she was quiet, private, and grounded. The kind of person who keeps a small circle, values family, and doesn't chase attention. And well, that mattered to Jota, because at that stage, his life wasn't noisy either. He was ambitious, yes, but grounded, focused. Football was serious, but it wasn't yet a guarantee. And in Rute, he found someone who wasn't drawn to potential fame or future success. She liked him, not the idea of what he might become. Feelings grew quietly, no drama, no spectacle. By 2013, they started dating and life did not slow down for them. In fact, that is when movement began. Football, unlike normal jobs, does not ask if you are ready. It simply moves you. One season you're settled, the next season your bags are packed. And for Jota, those moves came fast. From Paços de Ferreira to FC Porto, then beyond Portugal, new cities, new expectations, new pressure. Each move came with uncertainty. Where do you live? Who do you trust? What stays familiar when everything else keeps changing? Through all of that, Rute stayed exactly where she had always been, beside him. When Jota moved to Wolverhampton Wanderers, the stakes changed. England is not forgiving, the league is faster, the scrutiny is heavier, mistakes are louder. But again, the pattern remained the same. Rute moved with him, same presence, same stability, same role as his life partner. Then came Liverpool, one of the biggest clubs in the world, global attention, constant pressure, a place where careers are tested daily. Yet even here, nothing about their relationship changed. They did not rush marriage, they did not chase the traditional timeline. Instead, they built a family first. In February 2021, their first son, Dennis, was born. 2 years later, in March 2023, came their second son, Duarte. Then in November 2024, their daughter arrived. 3 children, 1 household, 1 routine. Rute remained the same quiet presence she had always been. Jota remained deeply tied to his roots, and together they carried their past forward into every new chapter of their lives. By the time the world saw Diogo Jota as an established football star, his real foundation had already been set at home. But while life at home felt settled, something else was happening quietly, something that did not announce itself with headlines or match reports. Toward the end of the 2024-25 season, Diogo Jota was dealing with a problem that does not care who you are or what level you play at. A lung issue. Part of his lung had partially collapsed. Now, this is not the kind of injury you can see on television. There is no limp, no obvious sign. You still run, you still train, you still show up. But breathing does not feel the same. Recovery takes longer. Small efforts feel heavier than they should. And like many elite athletes, Jota did not immediately step away. He played through discomfort. He continued competing. He even represented Portugal while managing the issue. Not because it was easy, but let's say that's just how top-level football works. You push, you manage pain, you delay rest until the season allows it. But injuries have timelines of their own. As months passed, it became clear this wasn't something that would simply resolve on its own. The issue lingered, and eventually, the decision was made. In late June 2025, just weeks after the season ended, Jota underwent minor lung surgery. The goal was straightforward: repair the issue properly and allow his lung to heal fully. No shortcuts, no guessing. The surgery went well. Medical professionals involved in his recovery later confirmed that his condition was real, managed carefully, and improving as expected. There was optimism. He was responding well. His body was doing what it needed to do. But recovery doesn't end when surgery ends. That's where the next conversation happened, the one that quietly changed everything. Doctors explained a simple but critical reality. Flying after lung surgery carries risk. Aircraft cabins are pressurized, yes, but not to sea level. The thinner air, the pressure changes, the oxygen levels, all of it can stress a lung that is still healing, especially one that had recently collapsed. So, the advice was clear: do not fly. Instead, they recommended a slower return, by land and sea, a road journey, a ferry, a gradual transition that would be far gentler on his respiratory system. And Diogo Jota listened. There was no argument, no hesitation, no attempt to override medical guidance. He accepted the plan and adjusted accordingly. In fact, a respiratory physiotherapist who treated him hours before his final trip later confirmed that Jota was recovering well. He was positive. He was looking forward to the upcoming season. His health issue had guided his travel decisions. Everything about this moment points to responsibility. The surgery had gone well, the recovery was on track, the plan was measured, and with that plan in place, life moved forward once more. It was at this time that Jota decided to do what was necessary between him and Rute. Now, after more than a decade of growing together, building a life quietly and raising a family without rushing anything, there was one thing left that Diogo Jota and Rute Cardoso had not yet done. They had not stood in front of everyone and said, "This is forever." That moment came in June 2025, but even the way they approached marriage told you everything you needed to know about them. There was no rush. Their engagement itself, which happened back in July 2022, was private. Just the two of them, by a lake. No spectacle, no announcement chasing attention, just a decision made between two people who already knew where they were headed. So when the wedding finally arrived on 22nd June 2025, it was a confirmation of one that had already been lived. The ceremony took place in Porto, close to home, surrounded by family and people who had watched them grow from teenagers into parents. And it happened, and everyone was happy. On social media, Diogo Jota shared moments from the day, simple posts, real smiles. He called it a day we will never forget. Rute described it as her dream come true, and well, you could see it in the photos and videos. There was joy, but also calm, no chaos, no performance, just two people who had waited, chosen carefully, and arrived at this moment together. In the days that followed, they shared more glimpses, wedding reels, family dancing, children laughing, newlyweds enjoying what felt like a pause from the outside world. The kind of days people rarely remember until they become the last ones before everything changes. Behind the scenes, life was already preparing to move again. Pre-season was approaching, Liverpool's schedule would not wait, and Diogo Jota, even after surgery, even after a wedding, was still a professional with obligations. But unlike most players, he wasn't booking a flight, because the doctors had been clear. Flying was not an option, so instead, a different plan took shape. A slower one, a safer one, a journey by road and sea, designed to respect a body that was still healing. No rushing, no shortcuts. The plan was simple. Leave Porto, cross into northwestern Spain, reach Santander, board a ferry to England, then drive onward to Liverpool. This wasn't new to him. Just weeks earlier, he had made a similar journey in reverse to attend his own wedding. The route was familiar, the logic was sound, and there was confidence. A respiratory physiotherapist who treated Jota hours before the trip later confirmed that his recovery was progressing well. He was in good spirits. He was looking ahead to the new season. The lung issue was real, yes, but it was being handled properly. There was no sense of danger. So sometime between late night on the 2nd of July and the early hours of the 3rd of July 2025, Jota packed what he needed for the return to routine. He wasn't alone. With him was his younger brother, André Silva. The two set off together in Jota's Lamborghini Huracán, a car he loved so much. The destination was clear, the plan was measured, the road ahead was long but familiar. Now, sometime in the early hours of the 3rd of July 2025, Diogo Jota and his brother André Silva were already deep into their journey. The night had thinned, traffic was lighter, the world felt quieter, the kind of quiet that makes long drives feel manageable. They were on the A52 motorway near Cernadia in the Zamora province of northwestern Spain, but this stretch of road has a reputation. Among locals and frequent drivers, the A52 is known for being poorly lit, uneven, and riddled with visible potholes. Truck drivers who use it regularly have described parts of it as dangerous, especially at night. The surface is inconsistent. Some sections feel smooth, others suddenly dip or rise without warning, and Diogo Jota could feel it. Because this wasn't a family SUV, this was a Lamborghini Huracán, a car that sits very low to the ground. That low profile is perfect for handling and aerodynamics on clean tarmac, but it comes with a cost. The suspension has less room to absorb sharp imperfections. On uneven roads, potholes don't disappear but transmit directly into the cabin. But not to worry. Why? He was enjoying the 5.2-litre V10 engine's power. So, as they continued along the A52, another vehicle appeared ahead. Jota began to prepare to overtake. This is not a dramatic maneuver. On highways, overtaking is routine. It requires timing, judgment, a smooth sweep of the wheel, a short commitment before returning to lane, and so he decided to make the move. The engine tone deepened, the car moved out, everything depended on grip, and then, without warning, the balance was gone and the car lost stability. The Huracán lurched, control disappeared in seconds, the steering no longer responded the way it should. Momentum took over, and the car left the road. It struck an embankment with force, and almost immediately caught fire. Flames spread rapidly, engulfing the vehicle in a matter of moments. Heat and smoke filled the area. Access became nearly impossible. Anyone nearby would have been powerless to intervene. Witnesses saw the blaze and reacted instinctively. Multiple calls went out to 112 Castilla y León, Spain's regional emergency number. Those calls triggered the official response, and within no time, the Guardia Civil traffic units were dispatched to secure the scene, as well as firefighters from the Zamora Provincial Brigade. The firefighters rushed in, battling flames that had already spread to nearby vegetation. Emergency medical teams followed, ambulances and mobile units moving as fast as the road would allow, but time was not on their side. By the time responders reached the wreckage, there was nothing left to save. Both Diogo Jota and André Silva had already died, victims of the impact and the fire that followed. The medical teams could only do one thing: confirm the deaths at the scene. On that quiet stretch of Spanish highway, the journey ended, questions were raised, and the investigation started. The Guardia Civil traffic unit moved first. The road was cordoned off to prevent contamination. Traffic was diverted. No vehicle was allowed near the wreckage. Officers began with what they always begin with: what can be seen before anything is touched. They documented the final resting position of the Lamborghini. They noted the distribution of debris across the road and shoulder. They studied the condition of the asphalt, lighting, surface wear, uneven patches. They recorded weather conditions, even if the night had seemed calm. This early stage matters because it locks the scene in time. Once recovery begins, these first observations are the baseline against which all later conclusions are tested. Then came the marks on the road. Investigators focused on skid marks and tire traces, not just whether they existed, but how they behaved, their length, their direction, their shape. These details can tell you if a driver braked suddenly, if the steering changed sharply, or if a tire failed without warning. Measurements followed. Traffic reconstruction specialists took precise distances between braking points and the crash site. They measured angles of impact. They calculated trajectories. All of this feeds into estimating speed, driver response, and vehicle behavior in the final seconds. The Lamborghini itself was next. Fire had done severe damage, complicating the process. But even burned vehicles speak. Investigators examined what remained of the tires, searching for signs of a blowout. They assessed wheel integrity, suspension components, steering systems, and brakes. Anything that could indicate mechanical failure. Every fragment mattered. Pieces of debris were catalogued and, where necessary, sent for laboratory testing. This is the scientific core of crash investigation, separating coincidence from cause. With physical data collected, experts moved into reconstruction. Using engineering principles and physics models, they recreated the crash digitally. Speed estimates, direction changes, timing. These simulations help determine whether the sequence of events aligns with a tire failure, road conditions, or driver input. Initial findings pointed toward a possible tire blowout combined with speed and road conditions as contributing factors. And while experts worked quietly behind the scenes, the rest of the world was just beginning to understand what had been lost. Now, when the news finally broke, it did not travel slowly. It hit all at once. Diogo Jota, dead, 28 years old, alongside his brother, André Silva. Within minutes, disbelief turned into mourning. But football does not pause often. Fixtures continue, training schedules hold, seasons move forward. But on this day, the game stopped paying attention to itself. Clubs, players, national teams, everyone reacted the same way. Shock first, then grief. Messages poured in from across Europe and beyond. Teammates struggled to find words, opponents put rivalries aside. Fans refreshed their screens hoping the reports were wrong. They weren't. In Gondomar, the town where everything had started, the loss felt personal. This was someone people had watched grow up, a local boy who never distanced himself from where he came from. The funeral brought together family, friends, football figures, and a community trying to process something that made no sense. Two brothers, one service, one silence. At Liverpool, the response was immediate and emotional. The club released statements describing Jota as more than a player, as someone deeply loved within the dressing room and the wider club. They asked for privacy for the family. Behind the scenes, they offered full support. Then came a decision that spoke louder than any press release. Liverpool retired the number 20 shirt across all levels of the club, and on match days that followed, there were minutes of silence, black armbands, banners in the stands that read, "Forever our number 20." His name echoed in stadiums where he would never play again. Internationally, Portugal mourned too. Tributes appeared during national team fixtures. Teammates stood still, heads bowed, carrying the weight of losing one of their own. And at the center of all of it was a family suddenly left behind. Reports later confirmed that Liverpool committed to supporting Jota's family in tangible ways: financial assistance, welfare support, and long-term provisions for his 3 children. But beyond the tribute and the support, what remains is simpler. Diogo Jota is a name that will always be remembered not just for goals, but for the life lived when the stadium lights were off. He will always be considered a legend on and off the field.